Hey seniors, today's going to be all about reviewing for your MLQ. I'm so excited. I think you guys are going to crush it. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're just going to review a bunch of different skills, and we'll do a mixed review, guided practice and independent practice. All right, so our first thing that we're going to review is going to be solving equations. So go ahead and draw your line on your notes page. Go ahead and write MLQ review in the top left-hand corner. And then go ahead and copy down our first example, which is 1/2 parentheses 2x minus 4 equals 4x plus 1. When I'm solving equations, the first thing I look for is, do I have to distribute? Here, I know that I have to. Whenever I distribute through a fraction, that's the same thing as dividing the denominator by everything inside the parentheses. So if I multiply 1/2 times 2x, that's just going to leave me with x, which is the same as 1x. And if I multiply 1/2 times -4, that's going to leave me with -2 equals 4x plus 1. My next step is to see, do I have any like terms that I can combine on the same side of the equal signs? Here I don't, but I do have like terms across the equal sign. So in order to get x by itself, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 1x from both sides. My x's will cancel out because x minus x just leaves me with 0. So I'm left with -2 on this side of the equal sign equals 4x minus 1x is just going to leave me with 3x plus 1. X is still not isolated, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. My 1's will cancel out. -2 minus 1 is going to leave me with -3 equals 3x. X is still not isolated, so I know that these two numbers are squished together by multiplication. So in order to get x isolated, I need to do the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. My 3's will cancel out. I'm left with x equals -3 divided by 3 is leaving me with -1. And that means if I plug -1 in, that will make the equation true on both sides. Let's move on. All right, so we're also going to see problems on our MLQ where we have to determine the equation based on the graph. Whenever you get problems like this, always, always, always find your y-intercept first. Always, always, always. And remember, the y-intercept is the point on the y-axis where the line crosses it. So if I look at this line, I see that it crosses it at -4. My next job is to find my slope. Because remember, we're working with the equation y equals mx plus b, where b is the y-intercept and m is the slope. In order to find the slope, I need to find another clear point on the graph and find the slope between those two numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and I see that there's one at 1 and 2. So I need to find the slope between these two numbers. Well, I see that my line is going down, which means that my slope is definitely going to be negative. So now I just need to figure out my rise and my run. And my rise is how many points I go up or down, and my run is how many points I go left to right. So if I'm looking at just these 2 points, I see that I go down 2, which will be my rise, down 2, so it'll be -2, and then over 1. -2 divided by 1 is just -2, so I have a slope of -2. If I write it in slope-intercept form, my equation is y equals -2x plus 4. Plus 4. All right, let's move on. Let's go ahead and work with solutions. So I want to solve and determine the number of solutions for this equation. So let's review with solutions. If x equals a number, that means it has one solution. If x equals itself, it means there are infinite solutions. And if two different numbers equal each other, that means there are no solutions. So again, if I have a variable, let's just say x equals 5, that means I have one solution. If I have 5 equals 5, that means that I have infinite solution. That means there's any number I could plug in to make it true. But then if I had like 12 equals 27, that's going to leave me with no solutions. So let's go ahead and figure out this one. Go ahead and write 9x plus 12 equals 9 parentheses x plus 3. Immediately I see that I'm going to have to distribute. Remember, even when I'm trying to determine solutions, I'm still solving for my variable. So this side of my problem is going to stay the same. If I distribute 9 times x will leave me with 9x. Let me write that a little bit nicer for you guys. Leave me with 9x. And then 9 times 3 is going to leave me with 27. I want to get the x's on one side of the equal sign by themselves, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 9x from both sides. My 9x's will cancel out on this side because 9x minus 9x just leaves me with 0. And then 9x minus 9x will also leave me with 0. So I'm left with 12 equals 27. And since 12 is not the same thing as 27, that tells me that this problem has no solution. That means that there is not one number that I could plug in to make this equation true. So remember, always solve for your variable and then determine your solution. All right, lastly, this is going to be another skill where we have to graph an equation. So the first thing you need to look at is my equation in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, where b is my y-intercept, m is my slope. I see immediately that this is not in the proper slope-intercept form because y is not isolated. So make sure you have 2y plus 4 equals 1x written on your notes page. I want to solve for y. So I want to get y completely isolated by itself. So that means I have to get rid of this positive 4. In order to get rid of this positive 4, I need to do the inverse of addition, which is subtraction. My 4's will cancel out. I'm left with 2y equals 1x minus 4. Now, this is where a lot of us are getting confused because y is still not isolated. It has a 2 connected with it through multiplication. In order to isolate it, I need to divide by 2 on both sides. My 2's will cancel out. I'm left with y equals, be really, really careful here because 1 divided by 2 is not going to give me 1 or 2. It's actually going to give me 1/2. And I have to make sure that I divide 2 by 1x and also by 4. So I'm left with y equals 1/2 x, and then negative 4 divided by 2 is just negative 2. So this is my equation. Y equals 1/2 x minus 2. In order to graph this, I need to figure out what is my y-intercept and what is my slope. Remember, if I look back at my equation, y equals mx plus b, I know that negative 2 is my y-intercept, which is always my starting point. And 1/2 is going to be my slope. If I want to graph this, I always start with my y-intercept, which is negative 2. Remember, make sure you take the sign in front with it. So I'm going to put a dot on my graph where y is negative 2. Next, I work with my slope. If I have a slope of 1 over 2, my rise is going to be 1, and my run is going to be 2. That means every time I want to plot a new point, I'm going to go up 1 space and right 2 spaces. So I'm going to go up 1 point and right 2 points. And up 1 and right 2. Up 1 and right 2. Up 1 and right 2. If I want to extend on this side of the graph, I just do the opposite. Down 1 and left 2. Down 1 and left 2. Down 1 and left 2. Again, you'll see that this is making a completely straight line. If you are not getting a straight line when you graph these, you're doing something wrong. Go ahead and draw that. All right, guys, those are going to be our key skills that we're going to see on our MLQ tomorrow. So I want to keep this video relatively short and so we can get right into practice. All right, let's get to it.